Welcome back, everybody. This is the third installment for this video series. I spent a lot of time in the shop this week, although overall it does not look like it. But I also don't want to get these videos to be too extremely long, so this one's right about 15 minutes, a little over 15 minutes. But got some things to share with you, and I am making progress. Alright, so we've got the majority of the engine compartment done. I'm still working on a few smaller details. I'm going to add a little bit of wiring, because in the final scenario of this scene, the hood is going to be open or even removed completely. So we're going to have a really good view inside the engine compartment. So I want to do my best, or at least the best I've done to this point, to show, a detailed engine compartment. But without any further ado, let's get on to what I have accomplished this week. All right, right now I'm detailing the exhaust system. Now remember, this diorama, this vehicle has been in a barn or a shed for 20, 30, 40 years, and it was probably driven some before it got put in there. So our exhaust system needs to be a little rusted, right? So what I've got here is some rust-colored weathering powder, and in the cup I've added a little bit of odorless mineral spirits to make like a paste, right? So it's got some grit to it, it's pasty. You can see it on the side of the cup there, all right? And I already did a portion of it. I think you can see there. So that started out painted, similar to this portion. And what I started with was, of course, everything I do gets primered first. And then I sprayed flat aluminum, the Tamiya flat aluminum. And then I used a metallic brown, highly thinned, so it's got a little bit of a rust color to it. But now what I'm going to do is take this pasty mixture, and we're gonna dab it on. All right, and it looks a little heavy there, so we'll keep dabbing, and as it dries we can take some of that off. All right, so we'll let this one sit for a few moments, then we'll work on this one. And any portion of it that's going to be visible from underneath needs to get the treatment. Now, even though in this case with this model, I don't know that anybody will be able to pick it up. I think I'm probably going to affix it to the base that I put it on. I just knocked my pipette on the floor. Alright, so this rust is looking a little heavy, so we'll just keep dabbing it, thinning it. Alright, so compare the two. One's a little heavier than the other. But you can see this also gives it a texture, that rusty texture to it. Alright, so let's see, this is the part I did earlier. These ends connect to the head pipes on the engine. So we still got the exhaust tips, and of course the end of the tip there will get painted black, probably a flat black, to denote. All right, and this probably needs to be more heavily weathered, or heavily rusted rather. I mean, it's gonna be seen. I probably should have put some gloves on prior to starting this, but that's all right. I'm not too concerned about getting this stuff on my hands. There's nothing harmful here. This is odorless mineral spirits and some weathering powders. So nothing bad for you. The weathering powder, it should wash off fairly easy. It may leave a stain to your skin for a while. I don't think so, though. All right, let's get this last one here. This weathering powder, I don't recall specifically the name of it, but I do know that I purchased it years ago for doing model train weathering. And it's actually got built into it a little bit of a fixative. So when you put it on plastic, bare plastic, it'll stick. It doesn't rub off. All right. I think that's going to do what we want. Let's take another look at this. All right, you can see it's starting to dry. And to me, that looks like the real deal. Just dab it out a little bit more. Yeah, that one's a little heavy. So let's take some of that off. There. Now it doesn't look quite as heavy. Anyway, that's my technique for doing rusted pipes. All right, now that has dried more, I wanted to come back in here and give you a more close-up look at it, and you can see the texture to it. And I'm telling you, it really looks like rusted metal. All right, I'm about to start painting these rally wheels. The insets between the spokes get a semi-gloss black, so we're using the Tamiya X18 semi-gloss black, and I've got my 3/0 fine tip brush. I've also got some of these small cotton buds, these very pointed tip cotton buds. That's in case I get a little bit outside of the lines anywhere, I can quickly get it off of there using one of these. At least that's the plan anyhow. These are the wheel backs. Already sprayed them in a metallic gray. In the cup is a little bit of the X20A from Tamiya. And let's see. Oh, so this has the kit chrome on it. I did not dechrome them. And my reasoning for that is everything's going to get weathered down, right? So after I get these painted in the centers, we'll hit it with a dull coat, which will help bring the brightness down on that chrome. But then, with various grunge and dirt washes and powders and whatnot, they're going to be far from shiny chrome when it's all said and done. And there we have it. My semi-gloss black paint is pretty thinned in the bottle because this was an old bottle, and I used an eyedropper to add some X20 to it yesterday to get the last of it out. And I probably added a little too much of the thinners, so it's pretty thin. So this is actually after a couple passes on each wheel, and I may even give it a third pass a little later on. Let this dry a little more, because some of those areas are still a little silverish, not as black as they probably could be. In last week's video, I showed you a bunch of the 3D printed stuff that I ordered to help build out this diorama. You know, we need some clutter, junk, whatnot in our barn. I've got Iceman Collections, VCG Resins by Reese. This is MCV Products, Matthew Inman. And then these are actually cast resin. So this is not 3D printed. Everything else is 3D printed. The quality on these was not the best at all, but for what I'm using it for, they're going to be just fine. I'd never really heard of this, but I was searching on the internet and found these and thought, yeah, what the heck. But something I wanted to mention, all right, so in the Iceman Collections Welder's Parts Pack, you get a couple of these bottles, right? So your oxygen and acetylene tanks, and I think you can see there's vertical lines going up around this. All right, I have another one here. The second one actually fell off my bench and broke the top, which I have not been able to find yet. It's either somewhere on the floor, buried behind something, or it fell into something after bouncing off the floor. All right, so this one, I think maybe you can see it a little better. Anyway, those striations are on a lot of the 3D printed stuff that you'll get. Now, I will say that for the most part, especially Matthews, the VCG resins, and for the most part, the Iceman stuff, you won't see much of that. And I think that has a lot to do with the resolution of the printer, and maybe perhaps even the resin they're using to print these files, and it may be the files themselves. So if you just use like a Tamiya primer like this, which is what I normally use on the majority of my work, those striations are still going to be very visible. So what I found, a better primer to use is a filler primer, and this stuff from Rust-Oleum works absolutely perfect. And filler primer, high build formula, fills imperfections, which that's technically what it is. It's an imperfection because you want a rounded tank. You don't want these vertical bars in it. But it's also sandable. But you got to be careful. If you put too much of this on, say something like, let me grab, okay, this is the welder's machine, all right, and you've got some detail here. In fact, around this, there are little screw heads around that hole, that nipple, whatever that is, all right. If you build that primer on too heavy, details like that will disappear on you. And you can still kind of see it. All right, there's some vertical lines along the side here. You can kind of see it on this side. Now, I did sand this to some extent, but you know, it's hard to get in between some of this stuff, especially the face, which you can't really see any signs of the lines on there now, but there were. So that's where the filler primer comes in handy. It'll help eliminate, disguise, hide those vertical lines. But I thought I'd throw that out there. It's a good primer to get. I get this at one of the big box stores, so no hard time finding any of this. I recommend it. One more thing I wanted to mention about this SE Limited cast resin. There's a lot of flash on this, and like these C-clamps, I just lost one somewhere. I'll find it. Anyway, they're not the greatest, right? And even the hammers, and on the other side of the hammers, oops, sorry, bumped the camera. On the other side of the hammers, the side that's down against the blue masking tape, there are some big air pockets in there, so they will only be laying in this direction to help hide that. This one's not so bad. This hammer over here, I don't know if you can see that, but right on the hammerhead there's a big dimple right there. And then this piece, I don't know if it was supposed to have been a second claw hammer or if it's just the claw part. I mean, there was so much flash, it was hard to tell, honestly. And the C-clamps, the wing nut portion of the C-clamps, there was a big long arm on each one of them that you had to trim, and you know, they're not the best. So you can't really compare cast resins to 3D printed products. Even the texture you see on the top of this toolbox lid, that's actually air bubbles in the casting. So it's not filled in. And I did use the Tamiya primer on this and not the filler primer. So I may go back over this yet again and spray the filler primer on it to help hide that. But then again, I might not. You know, we might turn this into an old aged steel-sided toolbox. You know, so that could be part of our rust. We'll just have to play that one as we go and see how it looks. But anyway, if you're buying cast resins, be aware that you're going to have a fair amount of cleanup to do on some of them to get the look you're looking for. So there you go. We're caught up for now. In this coming week, I plan to do more work on the trailer that I have to build, and we'll probably get started on the barn section itself. Barn, shed. I haven't really determined exactly what it's going to be because we're only going to really show 2 walls and a portion of roof. So, but anyway, that'll be coming up this week as well. Body paint and color, that may come yet in a couple of weeks. And when I do that, of course, there's going to be some overspray that needs to be done on the bottom of the chassis here. So look forward to that coming up in the near future as well. If you haven't, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, like, share, comment. I'm kind of having fun doing this. I hope you guys are enjoying watching it. And if you have any input for me, jump right in. Let's chat. Y'all take care. Peace and love.